Well, good morning, everybody. Now that we've got Jimmy, we'll get going here. Appreciate everybody taking a few minutes with us. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we're giving everybody permission to record this. If you're having an issue, just drop a note in the chat, and we'll get you covered. To ask a question, just raise your hand, and when we come to you, please just state your name and affiliation. And we're going to try to get to as many questions as possible. So if you can limit your questions to one per person, that would be helpful. So thanks again for being here. We have 7-time champ Jimmie Johnson with us. Jimmy's going to be back in the 48 Ally car on Sunday at Kentucky. As everyone knows, this week he had 2 consecutive negative tests for COVID-19 and was cleared by his doctor and then by NASCAR to return. Jimmie, it's great to have you back. Thanks for taking a few minutes. Just to get started, can you give everybody just a quick snapshot of what the last week's been like and how you're feeling going into the race this weekend?
Yeah, obviously just a interesting week or so. To have the positive test and then the 2 negative tests, just the emotional kind of journey you go through and worrying about your safety, your family's safety, watching a race with somebody else in your race car and the emotions that go with that, coming to grips with all of those, with the reality of all of that has been challenging. But, I've always subscribed to, growing through these tough moments. And I feel like I'm a smarter, stronger person today, experiencing all this. Clearly extremely happy to be reinstated and ready to be back with my race team and in that race car.
Thanks, Jimmie. We're going to go ahead and open it up. Again, please raise your hand if you have a question and state your name and affiliation. We're going to start with Bob Pockris and then go to Michelle Martinelli.
Yeah, Jimmie, do you know, did you have a false positive, or do they think that you were just kind of at the end of the run of the virus? And have you had any sort of fatigue or anything like that?
No, I've had no symptoms through this journey. There are a lot of scenarios that can play out, and probably 3 or 4 scenarios that can play out. And to go through them and try to form an opinion would just be speculating. And at this point, I just don't think that's very intelligent or smart to do. I followed the protocol that NASCAR has in place. It's the same protocol that, from what I've seen watching ESPN, it seems like all the other major sports have as well. I've been watching the numerous cases of positive tests take place. I've also seen many examples of a double negative in more than a 24-hour period of time take place, and then those athletes have been reinstated. So, it's a science-based reinstatement process. I don't know a lot, but I do know that I've had 2 negative tests and I've followed protocol. I've also had a release from my physician to put me back in the car. I feel great. I'm excited and I'm ready to go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmie. Thanks, Bob. Michelle, go ahead.
Hi, Jimmie. On Monday, you tweeted the stylized logo of the number 43 team along with the hashtag I stand with Bubba. Why did you do that? What made you want to do that?
I'm sorry, you broke up for a second. Can you ask that question?
I'm sorry.
Again?
On Monday, you tweeted the stylized logo of the 43 team along with the hashtag I stand with Bubba at about noon on Monday, Eastern time anyway. What made you want to tweet that?
Well, with the current events, just letting it known that I stood with Bubba in the beginning of this this journey, and I continue to stand with Bubba.
Was it in response to anything in particular?
Yeah, the tweet that the president put out.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Michelle.
Jesse, is my internet stable and working, or is it other folks?
You look good here.
Okay, the quality's staying consistent and coming through.
I'm able to hear you and see you pretty well.
Okay,
Yep.
must have been her feed then. Okay.
Yep. So we'll go to Claire B. Lang and then Mike Solarte. Claire, go ahead.
Thank you. Jimmie, you hadn't missed a race and you're sitting there watching the race. How did that feel? And then your car obviously got caught up in that melee. Maybe you learned the world continues to turn. Maybe it killed you inside. I don't know. And then, of course, you hardly got a chance to watch your car compete very long. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's just such a weird set of events. I would say that, you know, Saturday night trying to go to sleep was probably the most difficult time for me, knowing that I wasn't going to be in the car. Sunday morning was still pretty tough, but I felt like Saturday night was probably the peak of, you know, that the emotions that go with missing a race and consecutive start streak coming to an end, not being in the car. My final year, you know, all the things that you would naturally think of. Saturday night was the peak. Sunday morning wasn't great, but I joined the team call that we do, you know, an hour and a half before the race. And I was able to just hear the voices of my crew guys and give them, you know, a shot in the arm and pump them up and just be involved in that team moment. And it's crazy how it just relaxed me, because I was convinced I wasn't going to watch the race. I'm like, I can't do it. But having that moment to talk to Cliff, talk to all the guys, Justin was clearly on the call, and to hear, you know, the words he had to say to the team, it let a lot of that go. And I actually watched the race. So sadly, it didn't last long for the 48 team with the issue on pit road, and clearly thankful that the crew member that was struck is, you know, has some injuries, but they aren't any worse. So I don't know. It was crazy to run through that peak and then to be able to sit down and actually watch the race.
Glad to have you back. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Claire. We'll go to Mike Solarte and then Mark Garrow.
Thanks, Jesse. Hey, Jimmie, good to see you back. You mentioned you were asymptomatic. You haven't had a symptom. There are folks out there outside of just the casual observers who see other athletes test positive and they're quarantined for 10 days or 14 days. Yours is under a week that you were tested positive and you've been reinstated. Do you think that do you think that this is too quick for you to come back? And just as a follow, how's Shani doing?
Oh, Shani's great. She's been asymptomatic as well. On the very beginning, she had some allergies, but you know, it's allergy season here in Colorado, so everybody has allergies. So I'm not sure that truly is a symptom, and I believe she is really asymptomatic as well. So first and foremost, we're very thankful that we're not dealing with the illness like many others are in having the complications that come with this virus. And then to follow up on your question, sports have many, if not all, the major sports leagues out there have the exact same reinstatement program. I've seen a player in the PGA be reinstated in a short period of time with 2 negative tests in more than a 24-hour period of time. And there were others, as I watched on SportsCenter the last couple nights, falling asleep. So, you know, I've followed the protocol. You know, it brings a lot of questions as to where I was in the journey of being positive and all of that. So there's a lot of speculation there. I don't know those answers, and believe me, I'm the most frustrated person out there, especially living in a world of facts that I do. To not have the facts drives me bananas. But you know, I have followed protocol, and I've been reinstated. So that's about all I can speak to at this point.
Thanks, Jimmie. Good luck, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. We'll go to Mark Garrow and then Jordan Bianchi.
Thanks for joining us this morning, Jimmie. How has this been
Mark.
for you? How's this been for your children? I know your first comments, you talked about how tough this was for you and your wife and your kids. How's that emotional roller coaster kind of been for you guys this week with your children?
You know, the first probably 6 or 8 hours were very emotional. You know, them trying to process it and figure it out. But I think as we got into the second day, you know, because we found out in the afternoon and, you know, made it through dinner that night and the next morning, when they realized that mom and dad were okay, and thankfully again we've been asymptomatic, the emotions and the fear really started to subside. So the kids are in a good place with it all. I think as good as they can be for their ages, but it is tough. I mean, they quickly forget how diligent they need to be, and I guess ultimately I know this is a point in time that their little minds will never forget that what their parents went through.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. We'll go to Jordan.
Jordan Bianchi, The Athletic. Jimmie, you talked about some of the policies of the other sports leagues, MLS, MLB, NBA. They are testing their athletes on a regular basis. NASCAR is not testing its drivers. Is that something you'd like to see happen?
I really feel like that's a question for NASCAR to answer, and I've got to be so careful in this world and not speculate at this point in time in the situation I'm in.
I understand.
I do know I've had my 2 negative tests. I'm happy to be reinstated.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll go next to Jack Binion and then John Howard.
Thanks, Jesse. Jimmie, glad to see you kind of on the road back to competing again. I'm sure this is really, really low down the agenda for you and something you've probably not thought too much about, but have you had any conversations with Ganassi about the IndyCar test and how does that kind of work moving forwards with them?
Yeah, there's been a couple conversations, and I think Ganassi and IndyCar are eager to have that experience, get me in a car, get me tested. But everybody's just giving everything a little time to breathe right now and maybe identify the next possible date that works for IndyCar, works for Ganassi. And I'm clearly hopeful to get a test from McLaren, as I was trying to work on back in April that went away because of the lockdown. So I think that's all to come. It's hard to say anything's really taking place just yet. But I know I'm eager, and I know everybody involved is eager for that to take place, and for us to really understand if that's something I want to do, and then which team might be the best fit for me ultimately.
Thank you. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. We'll go to John Howard and then Jeff Gluck. John, you with us?
I think he's on mute. I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
There's
Sir,
John.
we got you.
All right. Thank you, Jimmie. Appreciate your patience. Good to see you again. 2 quick questions. How frustrating has this final retirement season been for you with the pandemic and then you actually missing a race last week? And then also, what are your emotions going into this weekend compared to last Saturday night when you knew you weren't going to race and now that you're racing?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year, and as much as I want to, at times wonder why this hadn't happened in my final full-time season in Cup. As I turn on the news and look around and see how many people are really ill from this, the seriousness and severity of the pandemic, it quickly fades out of my mind. I mean, this is a big problem. It's a pandemic, so I've really kept my emotions in check. I'm just trying to figure out how to keep my family safe and how I can ultimately learn from everything that's going on. I mean, we've dealt with a lot in the last 4 months as a nation, as a world. So trying to learn and grow, trying to teach and educate my children, trying to lead by example. I've been able to learn that my challenges are watched closely by my kids, and how I deal with that adversity is ultimately teaching them. And it's been pretty simple with having a tough couple years professionally, and then now it's ramped up to this level. So I just try to find the right spin on it. It's easy to get into a dark headspace on all this, and my wife and I we're trying so hard not to let that happen. And I think our accountability is really held on us by our children, and trying to teach them the best that we can.
And then you were excited for as far as race?
Yeah, it's super excited, and in my head of optimism, I'm like, what a comeback story. you know, the COVID comeback, if you will, you know, it could really be a, you know, a special moment. And I've always been highly motivated, but it would be really cool to have great success on Sunday, or certainly here in the near future with everything we're dealing with.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. We'll go to Jeff Gluck and then Jeff Magliacetti.
Jimmie, I was just wondering if you could describe your sense of relief, if that's what the emotion was when you got that first negative test, and then, you know, to get another one after that, knowing that, you know, you're still going to come back inside playoff contention and only miss one race and all that.
Yeah, I would say my first response though was just anger. I mean, I started cussing and used every cuss word that I knew of, and then I think invented a few new ones. So I just, you know, it was just so weird at the anger, because I've been asymptomatic. So, you know, anger hits and then speculation in my mind, and it's like, wait a second, there's nothing good to come of this. No one knows. I don't know. It's just time to move on. And then, you know, I got very excited, started looking at the facts that I've only missed one race. I've still got a good gap above the cut line. And then this optimism about, man, I hope I get that second negative. And then I did. So I feel like I'm more on the optimistic side of things and really out of the dark headspace that I was in. And then just, you know, moving in the right direction and looking forward in all this.
Sorry, anger because you felt like you got, you know, just sort of screwed by this whole situation, or, you know, that you went through this and, you know, you never had symptoms and stuff like that? Or what was the anger coming from, I guess?
Yes to all, and then more. Like I don't, again, being in a fact-based world, and then being so early in a pandemic where we don't have many answers as a country, as you know, for the globe. You know, there's just anger everywhere. Anger related to the pandemic, through me being positive, through me missing a race, through me not being with my team, the fear in my children's eyes. I mean, it's just fear. You know, I just had anger everywhere. So
makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Jimmie, welcome back. Welcome back to the circuit. What did you have any special words for Justin Allgaier before he took over the number 48 on Sunday? And how do you think he handled all the pressure to taking over such a car, position probably no one wanted to be in being the guy who indirectly ended your streak?
Yeah, I've known Justin a long time and been able to race against him and watch him do so many great things behind the wheel. Thankfully, with the relationship at JRM, you know, my team has had time with him and been around him. So I felt like, you know, he was in a very fortunate situation to move past a lot of that relational stuff on the front side and really just get in the car and go. So my advice to him was just drive the wheels off it. You know, it's just a race car. I mean, don't let the pressure of it be in my car and the 48 and all that other stuff that I think would be very easy for somebody stepping in to let bother them. So I just try to keep it simple for him and just remind him it's a race car, stand on the gas and go. And I truly believe he was in that headspace. He wanted to be smart and understand that package, and you know, was methodical about working his way up through traffic. And then, you know, the unfortunate situation that happened on pit road took him out. But you know, I'd sent him a text maybe a day or two ago that I really felt bad that he didn't have a chance to shine as I hoped he could have in that 48 car.
Thank you, Jimmie. Good luck this weekend, and best wishes to you and your family.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. We have time for a few more. We're going to go to Ben Johnson, Marty Smith, and then we'll finish up with Alex.
Hi, Jimmie. Ben Johnson here from Paddock Eye. My first question is, have you had to change your approach at all going into this weekend, given what you've been through, or is it just a regular weekend for you? And secondly, looking to next year, if you do go down the IndyCar route, is there any track that you particularly want to race on specifically?
Yeah, I feel like where I sit above the cut line, I can still apply you know, the mentality of worrying about stage points and also wanting to win. If we were below the cut line, I think it would probably change, and you know, the focus would be much more on on the Hail Mary and trying to win a race. So, luckily we've had a good start to the season. There are a few races I wish I could have back to even have myself higher in the points right now and more of a cushion to the cut line, but it's just not the case. So I think my focus stays the same. And then track for Indy cars, there are a lot of cool circuits that I haven't had a chance to drive, and that's part of my desire in doing something different and looking towards 21 and beyond. But IndyCar specific, growing up in San Diego and going to the Long Beach Grand Prix, I can't tell you how many times I hung on the fence to watch Indy cars go by. I also went there to have meetings with the Chevrolet folks, and a lot of stuff took place in motorhomes there that really kind of guided and cemented my career in NASCAR and having a professional career, period. So Long Beach is really high on my hit list from that standpoint. But, it's not sure what is the Monterey track has been, trying to think of the exact and current name for it, but I've always wanted to go through the
WeatherTech Raceway, I think.
There you go. That's just as a kid watching all those insane passes of the corkscrew, that's probably on equal footing with Long Beach.
Excellent. Best of luck this weekend, man, and great to have you back.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. We're going to go to Marty next.
Johnson, I'm thrilled you're back. Everybody is. You've had plenty of time to think about this. You guys got me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so inept. I can't figure out how to use this thing even after all these months. You've had plenty of time to think about this, man, and consider all that emotion that you talked to Jeff and others about. So I wonder, what will be your broad scope takeaway from this experience that envelops all that emotion? And also a second part, there's going to be a lot of athletes who end up in your position as we move through this pandemic. What's your message to them?
Yeah, I mean, I just watching how fast the virus is spreading and, things staying open and us pushing forward as a country and as a world. I fear that we're all going to have this at some point. I just don't see how we avoid that. So there's, I'm worried about that. I know that I've been very fortunate to be asymptomatic, and have been able to have the range of emotions from anger to concern. And some people only have concern. So I feel like I've been fortunate to be in my position, be asymptomatic, and I know many aren't in that position. So, as athletes deal with this, and even individuals, I mean, this thing shows no mercy, and it moves so quickly, as we all know, that once it's in your bubble or in your community, like I don't know how you slow it down. So take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, be smart. And my hands are so dry and cracking from washing my hands consistently. We know the ways to help it not spread, and I think we just need to get more serious about that and really protect ourselves and our loved ones.
Appreciate your perspective.
You got it, buddy.
Thanks, Marty. We'll take our last question from Alex. Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you. Hey, Jimmie. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm glad to see you back. You mentioned that you had been watching these other sports return, and I'm curious that, after this point and getting through so many races with NASCAR, kind of what do you think NASCAR is doing well in terms of testing? And then what do you hope to see kind of different, or maybe take from these other sports in terms of, should there be more tests initially? Should they wait longer between tests so as to confirm there's no false positive? What do you want to see?
I don't know enough to really give advice or have perspective. I just know the course that I've been on. I know that I've been asymptomatic. I know that I've tested negative twice, greater than a 24-hour period of time. My physicians reinstated me. So in my situation, I've dealt with a lot of emotions that I've spoken about already on the call, and then, happy to be reinstated and feel great. I've been at altitude this entire time. Yesterday or the day before, rode up to 10,500 feet on a bicycle and felt perfectly fine. So I I don't know how to add clarity and advice and what changes need to take place. I unfortunately feel that there's, a lot to still be learned in the professional field on this, in the medical field on this. And I, like everyone else, am eagerly awaiting, that instruction, that knowledge, a vaccine, better testing if it's required, better screening. There's just more questions than answers, I think, for a lot of us. I certainly don't have the answers for everybody.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You got it.
All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us. Jimmie, before we let you go, you're heading to Kentucky for the last time in your career, a place you haven't won yet. What are your thoughts just going into the weekend?
Yeah, Kentucky's been probably one of my top 2 or 3 most difficult tracks to compete at. I've got mixed feelings for the place because when I first started at Hendrick Motorsports, I feel like I lived at that raceway, doing testing for the team and just getting my reps and laps as a rookie coming into the sport. So I have positive vibes from that, but my racing experience is there from the Busch Series days, and even in the Cup car, it's just been demanding and tough. So I hope to conquer the track from that personal standpoint, and then clearly with what I've been through, what my friends and family have been through, my fan base has been through in the last week. It'd be nice to leave there with the trophy.
Jimmie, thanks for taking the time this morning. Thanks to everybody who joined us on the call. Appreciate the time. Hope everybody has a great weekend. And if there's anything that you need from a follow-up perspective, please don't hesitate to reach out. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.